The sound was small, barely more than a whisper, a soft chime from the miniature Christmas bell hanging near the bedroom door. But it was enough. 6-year-old Matthew Walker, the only son of one of the richest families in Aspen, snapped his head toward it. His eyes widened in surprise. He had heard it. And standing just a few feet away, frozen like someone who had just witnessed a ghost, was his nanny, Emily Carter. She watched the boy's reaction with a mixture of terror and awe. Because Matthew Walker was supposed to be deaf. Every doctor, every specialist, every high-end clinic had confirmed the same thing. The boy could not hear anything. Yet on that snowy December night, inside a mansion glowing with Christmas lights, Emily saw the impossible. If you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in people who still step up when the world turns away, take a moment to like, comment, and share this video. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel, because what you're about to see will restore your faith in humanity. We'd love to know, where are you watching from? Comment below with your country and region, and let us celebrate the kindness that connects us all. Now, let's begin. The Walker family was known throughout Colorado, not just for their wealth, but for their impeccable image. The tabloids called them perfect, untouchable, the American royalty of the Rocky Mountains. But behind the walls of their luxurious winter estate lay a secret that overshadowed every holiday season. Young Matthew had been diagnosed as deaf at age 3. His parents, Jonathan and Grace Walker, had spent millions searching for treatments, therapies, and miracle cures all over the country. Every Christmas, they lit candles hoping for the impossible, a son who could hear their voices. But the miracle never came. Or so they thought. Emily had been hired quietly, without much attention, just one more domestic employee among dozens in the vast estate. She was a simple girl from a small town in Kansas, someone who came to Aspen looking for work after her mother passed away. She never expected to be caring for a billionaire's child, nor to become the only person who would notice the cracks in the diagnosis. The first signs. At first, Emily didn't want to believe what she was seeing. Matthew startled when the heavy wooden door closed. He turned when someone said his name from far down the hall. He giggled, actually giggled, when the family dog barked. "No, that's impossible," she whispered to herself more than once. "He can't hear. They said he can't." But the signs kept coming, and soon the doubts grew into certainty. One afternoon, as snow fell gently outside, Emily accidentally dropped a glass ornament, a shimmering silver ball meant for the Christmas tree. It hit the floor with a sharp crack. Matthew jerked his head toward the sound instantly, his whole body tense. This time it wasn't coincidence. This time Emily knew. She felt chills down her spine. The entire world believed this child lived in silence. But Matthew had just reacted to noise as naturally as any other kid. Emily knelt beside him, her heart pounding. "Matthew, can you hear me?" The boy's eyes widened, but he said nothing. He simply pulled the blanket tighter around himself and looked away. Emily knew then that the truth was far more complicated than misdiagnosis. The silence behind the silence. Over the next several days, Emily quietly tested him. Soft whistles. Humming Christmas carols under her breath. Calling his name when his back was turned. Sometimes he reacted. Sometimes he didn't. But every reaction, no matter how small, confirmed what she feared. Matthew Walker could hear. He was just pretending that he couldn't. Or worse, someone had taught him not to reveal it. Emily carried this truth like a weight on her chest. She knew confronting the parents could cost her job. Billionaires didn't appreciate being told they were wrong, especially by a young nanny with no medical background. At a dinner one night, she overheard Grace Walker say quietly, "I've accepted it. My son will never hear my voice." And Jonathan, a man known in Aspen for his stoic, almost intimidating presence, added, "All we can do is give him the best care money can buy." Emily looked down at her plate, heart aching. If she told them, would they call her a liar? A troublemaker? Fire her on the spot? But staying silent meant letting Matthew live a life that wasn't his. The night everything changed. The breakthrough came unexpectedly. It was late. Snow piled thick against the windows. The pine-scented candles flickered softly. Emily tucked Matthew into bed under warm blankets decorated with reindeers and little Christmas trees. As she leaned in to adjust his pillow, she heard a whisper. Faint, trembling, almost afraid to exist. Please, don't say anything. Emily froze. Her breath hitched. Her heart felt like it stopped. Matthew had spoken. Not a babble. Not a mistake. A sentence. A plea. Matthew, she whispered, tears burning her eyes. Why, sweetheart? Why are you pretending? But he only shook his head and pulled the blanket over his face. Emily realized this was no medical issue. This was fear. Someone, something, had convinced this child to hide the truth. The discovery. The next morning, Emily decided she couldn't wait any longer. While Matthew played with his toy trains, she turned on a small flashlight and made a game out of moving the beam across his room. Suddenly, she pointed the beam near his ear and whispered, I know you hear me. You don't have to be scared. Matthew froze completely, his blue eyes widening with panic. And that was the exact moment Jonathan Walker appeared at the door, having silently walked in. Emily's heart dropped. He had heard everything. He had seen everything. She stood rigid, expecting to be fired. Jonathan's expression was unreadable, shock, confusion, maybe even anger. The room felt suffocating. The Christmas lights on the wall flickered softly, the only movement in the unbearable stillness. Jonathan took a step forward. Another. And then, in a trembling whisper Matthew had never heard from him before, the man said, Son, can you hear me? The child looked at Emily, then at his father, and finally whispered the truth he had buried for years. Daddy, I can. Jonathan staggered, grabbing the doorframe to keep himself standing. Emily covered her mouth, tears streaming. Matthew looked terrified, like confessing this secret was the most dangerous act of his short life. Jonathan knelt in front of his son, voice breaking. Why didn't you ever tell us, buddy? The little boy twisted the blanket in his hands, staring at it as if it could protect him. Because you never looked at me. And when I tried to say something, nobody listened. The words tore through Jonathan and Emily like a blade. Grace Walker entered the room, confused by the voices. What's going on? What? Matthew? You're talking? Her face went pale. Her knees weakened. That's impossible, she whispered. The doctors said. Matthew looked up at her with heartbreaking honesty. I always heard you cry at night. I wanted to tell you, but I was scared you wouldn't believe me. Grace covered her mouth, sobbing. Years of pain, guilt, and misunderstanding collapsed all at once. Jonathan pulled his son into his arms, holding him with the desperation of a father trying to reclaim lost years. Emily stood aside quietly, afraid she would be blamed. But Jonathan looked up at her with tears in his eyes. Emily, thank you. You saw what we didn't. For the first time since she arrived, she felt like she truly belonged in that enormous, cold mansion. The days that followed felt like waking up from a long nightmare. New specialists were called, not to confirm deafness, but to explain why Matthew had hidden his hearing. Their conclusions were simple. He had been misdiagnosed early on. Everyone around him treated him like he couldn't hear. And eventually, he accepted that role, because he didn't think anyone would listen to him anyway. It wasn't a medical condition. It was emotional. Grace sat beside his bed every night now, telling him stories, Christmas tales, fairy tales, her childhood memories. And slowly, timidly, Matthew responded. I hear you, he'd whisper. And she would cry every time. Jonathan made a new routine, bringing Matthew to his office, showing him around, talking to him, teaching him things. Not because Matthew was cured, but because he finally felt seen. The mansion changed too. It no longer felt cold. The halls echoed with laughter. Matthew's voice, once a hidden treasure, filled every corner. And every time he said, "Mom," or "Dad," they lit up like it was Christmas morning. A gift before Christmas. One afternoon, Emily quietly packed her things. She felt her mission was complete. She had uncovered the truth. The family was united. But Grace found her. "Please, don't leave," she whispered. "This home needs you. And my son needs you even more." Emily shook her head gently. "I only did what any heart would do, listen where others couldn't." Grace hugged her tightly, tears falling. That Christmas, the Walkers didn't celebrate wealth or extravagance. They celebrated Matthew's voice. The greatest miracle they could have ever received. As snow blanketed the Rocky Mountains and the Christmas lights shimmered on the Walker estate, the narrator closed the story with a reflection. Sometimes the longest silences don't come from inability, but from fear of not being believed. And when someone listens with their heart, they can uncover truths powerful enough to change entire destinies. The Walker family learned that their greatest treasure wasn't money, status, or perfection, but the voice they regained thanks to a humble nanny who never stopped seeing what truly mattered. A voice that became their Christmas miracle. Moral of the story. Sometimes the greatest truths hide behind the quietest moments, and the deepest wounds are formed not by cruelty, but by neglect, assumptions, and the absence of genuine attention. This story reminds us that the human heart often speaks long before the mouth seizes the courage to do so. What we call silence may, in reality, be a plea for understanding that no one has yet learned to hear. It teaches that trust is not built on luxury, resources, or status, but on presence, the simple act of truly seeing another person. When someone is labeled, boxed in, or defined by external voices, they may begin to believe in a version of themselves that isn't real. A false limitation, spoken enough times, becomes a cage. And often, those cages are built by the people who believe they are doing things right. The story also shows how much harm can come from relying solely on expert opinions while ignoring emotional truths. No diagnosis, no authority, no outside voice can replace the instinct of truly paying attention to another human being. Sometimes it takes one compassionate observer, someone humble enough to notice the details others overlook, to reveal a truth powerful enough to transform an entire life. Above all, this tale is a reminder that listening is an act of love. When we choose to listen with intention, not just with our ears, but with our heart, we open doors that fear once kept shut. And through that openness, healing becomes possible. Which part of this story touched you the most? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to read them. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you won't miss any of our next emotional stories.